Hello and welcome to another edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Audrey Williams. Today's program is packed with insightful features, including a breakdown of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining's estimates of expenditure for the 2026-2027 fiscal year. We also have practical tips to help you move forward in your personal development journey. And as you prepare for the final day of the Boys and Girls Championships tomorrow, let's extend that same energy and excitement in anticipation for what we have in store for you in this Jamaica Magazine. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the news.
Good day, I'm Jabertha Atkinson, and this is your JIS news for Friday, March 27, 2026. The government has now disbursed approximately $8.25 billion to help Jamaicans with repairs to their homes following the widespread damage caused by Hurricane Melissa last year. This represents more than 80% of the $10 billion allocated for the restoration of owners-occupants family shelters roofs program. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security provided the update in a press release on Wednesday. This latest phase of disbursement includes an additional $3 billion in payments to 14,000 new beneficiaries. Minister of Labour and Social Security Colonel Charles Jr. says it reflects the government's commitment to sustained and efficient support for affected families. In response to recent public concerns and media reports, the ministry emphasizes that funds under the roofs program are not exhausted. Rather, disbursements are accelerating as this expanded phase is rolled out nationwide. The ministry says some challenges experienced at collection points have been linked to beneficiaries arriving outside established operating hours. There is also a current limitation in the number of locations facilitating the $75,000 cash grant, which is designed to provide flexibility for urgent repair needs. The press statement says Minister Charles Jr. has met with the service provider and corrective measures are already underway to expand the number of cash-out locations. Beneficiaries are being reminded that notifications will be issued via text message with QR and voucher codes. Upon receipt, individuals are encouraged to redeem their benefits promptly. Jamaica has taken a major step toward modernizing public services with the full implementation of the Electronic Transactions Act and a new e-transactions policy. The policy was officially launched during this week's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House. It validates electronic signatures, giving them the same legal standing as handwritten ones, ensuring they are not denied validity simply because they are in electronic form.
Bottom line, we are accepting fully digital signatures. MDAs are required to classify transactions as low, moderate, or high risk to determine the required assurance levels, and heads of entities will assign our officers to oversee full implementation and compliance. Approvals within the authenticated Government of Jamaica information systems constitute valid electronic signatures where the system maintains a secure audit trail, and electronically signed documents must be preserved in accordance with legal retention schedules and must remain verifiable over time.
Government ministries, departments, and agencies will also be mandated to accept electronic signatures from citizens, suppliers, and contractors once they are legally valid. The policy will guide the implementation of the Electronic Transactions Act, passed in 2007, which provides a comprehensive framework to govern electronic communications, records, and signatures in a way that promotes trust, legal certainty, and technology neutrality. The policy will be made available through the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service as Jamaica accelerates its push toward a fully digital future. Meanwhile, The government is moving to begin scoping research for the introduction of electronic invoicing as part of efforts to further modernize Tax Administration Jamaica (TAJ's) system. The research will assess the digital readiness of the system as the country prepares for the eventual rollout of e-invoicing under the Revenue Administration Information System RAIS. Finance Minister Favour Williams says the initiative represents another step towards strengthening the country's tax administration framework.
Many modules have been installed over the years, from e-registry to e-filing to e-payment through to virtual file systems. It is going to require use of advanced electronic signature, field standardization, meaning how the data is collected, online validation operation modules, invoice verification, and will require technology to be deployed for interconnectivity between the taxpayer's system and that of the TAJ.
The upgrade of RAIS is a capital project within the Ministry of Finance with $1.08 billion allocated to support its continued development in the upcoming fiscal year. The Falmouth Regional Hospital is to be relocated inland as part of a major reorganization of the town aimed at reducing its vulnerability to climate change and coastal flooding. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness unveiled the plan during his recent budget speech. He says the relocation will ensure the hospital remains operational during severe weather events and will provide easier access to major transport routes.
We have identified somewhere, we'll make that known as soon as we have finalized the land. And this will be away from the flood zone with direct access to the North Coast Highway so that it remains fully operational precisely when it is needed most.
The government also plans to develop a new urban center built to modern standards of climate resilience, which will consolidate key public services for residents of Trelawney. In addition, the dragline, a critical drainage canal that runs east to west through the town, is to be cleaned, upgraded, and incorporated into a functional water feature as part of the redevelopment plan for Falmouth.
The dragline will serve as a boundary between two distinct and complementary zones of reimagined Falmouth. North of the dragline, closer to the sea, the focus will be on what the waterfront does best: tourism, heritage, recreation, and coastal protection. The magnificent Georgian Historic Core, the Albert George Market, the Falmouth Courthouse, the Tharp House Complex, the churches, and the Baptist Manse will all be preserved as far as possible. The cruise port and the waterfront will be enhanced and activated as world-class visitor experience.
The redevelopment will be undertaken by the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NARA. Detailed feasibility studies are being completed for the North-South Highway Extension project, which is designed to ease congestion on the current North-South Highway. The proposed extension consists of two segments, branching from a new grade-separated interchange near Maumee Bay, westward to Discovery Bay in St. Anne, and eastward to Tower Isle in St. Mary.
Together, these extensions will create a high-speed tolled alternative to the existing North Coast Road, diverting through traffic away from the congested commercial corridor, reducing journey times dramatically and unlocking the tourism and investment potential of the wider North Coast and St. Mary to the western parishes.
Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says once the extension project is sufficiently advanced, the North Coast Highway Improvement Project will commence. This will include upgrading the existing alignment from Montego Bay to Draxhall to involve the dualization of sections where traffic volumes and safety demands require it. And finally, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, is welcoming a new partnership between the University of Technology UTech and Alliance Française de la Jamaïque to host the French language school on the institution's Papine campus. Alliance Française is now located at UTech's Technology Innovation Center, creating a hub for cultural and linguistic exchange. The partnership will provide students and members of the wider public with access to specialized specialized French language classes, cultural activities, and internationally recognized certifications.
The program, a joint effort between the French Embassy and the Alliance Française, will undoubtedly equip the participants with a richer understanding of and an appreciation for the French language and culture, as well as improved proficiency in the language, enhancing their capacity to guide our students in their learning journey.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Jabertha Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
Do you own land and need a title? Well, the National Land Agency NLA can help. Through the systematic land registration process, the NLA will assist residents to get titles in declared project areas across Jamaica. Systematic land registration is the methodical and orderly registration of parcels of land in a designated area known as systematic adjudication area. For further information on the systematic land registration process, including declared systematic adjudication areas, who can apply and the benefits, visit the National Land Agency's website at www.nla.gov.jm or email asknla@nla.gov.jm. The National Land Agency, one agency, one goal. Thank you for staying with us. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining continues to strengthen the sector under its control, ensuring farmers and fisherfolk receive the support they need while positioning the mining industry for a more sustainable future. In our next feature, we highlight ongoing developments and key priorities outlined in the ministry's spending budget for the new financial year.
Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining will roll out its 2026-2027 programs under the theme Building More for Our Agriculture and Mineral Sectors. It is being backed by a $17.6 billion recurrent budget with $1.7 billion to be earned and $3.13 billion for 4 major development projects.
When agriculture moves forward, Jamaica moves forward.
Moving forward, Jamaica is transforming its agricultural output with a strategic focus on food security. Central to this effort are agricultural extension services, which has received $5.3 billion to support extension services, farm road rehabilitation, and production incentives. $3.4 billion will be spent to maintain and rehabilitate vital irrigation systems. Agricultural health and food safety sees an increase of $1.7 billion in funding. This is for export and phytosanitary services, disease surveillance, inspections and certification, national animal identification, and farm registrations. Money is also set aside for agro-industrial development, including banana and breeding services to revitalize the sector. Investing in Jamaica's future is a must, and so nearly $500 million is being allocated to train young farmers and support new agribusiness ventures. In addition, the Agricultural Research and Development Program is getting almost $1 billion to manage research stations, safeguard plant genetic resources, and support field and horticultural services. In the fisheries sector, $1.7 billion is set aside for capture fisheries, aquaculture, and regulatory compliance. Meanwhile, the mining sector receives $537 million. Most of that is being set aside for mining, manufacturing, and construction oversight. This will cover inspections, metallic and non-metallic exploration, and geological assessments to sustainably expand Jamaica's mineral economy. The remaining funds is dedicated to scientific and technical services for the mineral sector. One of the key initiatives is the Essex Valley Irrigation Infrastructure Development Program, which has been allocated $904 million. The project is funded by the Government of Jamaica and the Caribbean Development Bank. It aims to strengthen food security and modernize the agricultural sector. Targets include expanding formerly irrigated lands in St. Elizabeth by 50% and increasing crop yields in Essex Valley to at least 90% of their potential. This will be achieved through the construction of wells and the development of supporting agricultural infrastructure across the arable lands of Essex Valley. This financial year will focus on finalizing the operational plans for the Essex Valley and Southern Plains project areas, completing agricultural buildings, and finishing the installation of pumps and pumping equipment. Full completion of the project is scheduled for March 2027.
We are investing in the farmers so they can invest in their enterprise so that we can get the food that we need to ensure that we have a food secure Jamaica. And everything that we do now from the ministry has to be targeted.
Another capital investment is the Southern Plains Agricultural Development Project, to which $776 million has been allocated for the fiscal year. This initiative is unlocking irrigation access on former sugar lands to increase productivity and modernize farming. In the 2026-2027 fiscal year, funds will support the construction of agricultural buildings, including packing houses, and reinforcing of roads and drainage systems to reduce flood risks. Procurement will be done for drain cleaning equipment for the Agro-Investment Corporation, and renewable energy systems are to be installed. Matching grant disbursements to farmers will also be activated.
So this is about transforming our agricultural ecosystem so that one, our farmers will get more consistent return on their investments, and on the other hand, our consumers will always have access to high quality food. This government is about transformation of agriculture.
$500 million has also been allocated to advance the Pedro Plains Irrigation Expansion Project. Once completed, it is expected to provide direct irrigation access to at least 4,000 farmers across Pedro Plains through an expanded network of water distribution facilities. For the 2026-2027 fiscal year, priority activities will include finalizing engineering designs, forming marketing and farmer groups to strengthen best practice adoption, and beginning the procurement and installation of pipes and related infrastructure. The government-funded project is scheduled for completion in March 2030. The ministry's largest capital allocation, $950 million, is for the rehabilitation of Research Centers Project Phase 2. This is aimed at empowering the centers to function as hubs of excellence, thereby supporting national economic growth. This year's allocation will allow work to continue at Bodles, with a new piggery and renovation of small ruminant houses. At Montpelier, a herd management system will be procured, fencing installed on 330 acres, and a hydroponic system set up. A new goat house will be constructed at Hounslow, while the existing one is repaired and a hay barn built. Orange River will procure farm equipment, renovate the farm director's house, build a new office with lab and kitchen, and repair internal roads. Chop Mountain will upgrade water harvesting, repair roads, and improve electrical and lighting systems. The project is expected to be completed in March 2030.
You really want to move the country forward. You really want to move recovery forward. Agriculture is the answer.
Looks fun, right? Just take a second to think before you jump. It might look safe, but hidden rocks and shallow waters are real dangers. One bad jump can change everything. You can't always see what's under the surface. That's why it's never a good idea to dive into unknown waters. Always go in feet first and stay safe. I promise the thrill isn't worth the risk.
Now, let's turn our attention to how the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information is working to ensure that no child is left behind through its Host School initiative.
On October 28, 2025, Hurricane Melissa tore through communities across Jamaica, leaving homes damaged, families displaced, and hundreds of schools unable to reopen. Education faced one of its greatest tests, with schools in the West severely impacted. But Jamaica refused to let learning stop. A national solution was activated, one built on coordination, compassion, and community. This is a story of how education remained unbroken, even in the face of devastation.
To ensure learning does not come to a halt for the thousands of children in the severely damaged schools, we have activated a whole school modality. This is a temporary arrangement where a student from a non-operational school continues learning in another institution for a defined period of time.
So being a part of the program, we have had students who, they have migrated from their Westmoreland, from Hanover, from St. Elizabeth. Parents are now living in Kingston because of the dislocation that they experienced. And being here, they would have come by Kingston Technical High School to seek a space for their child.
I feel sad when my school closed because I moved to town and then I was going no school. I see other people going to school. I feel sad to myself, so he's the only one not going to school. I miss all of my friends and my farm teachers.
We know the devastation that happened, so emails were sent, calls were made directly to these persons. We communicated to the school officials via phone, via email, to get the background information that we needed on the students, and then we would have transferred them in. Students that came in, we would have tested them, and we realized that there would have been learning gaps in, that would have been taking place. And so they were placed in special classes that would help them to build their self-esteem, to build their skills in literacy and numeracy. So it would help them to move along, much easier, and to manipulate the instruction that is being given to them.
I feel excited because I'm going back to school now. I like the teachers, I like my farm teacher, and I like to learn at the technical high school. I like to do my homework, I like to do my work in class, I like to explain things when the teacher gives me information. I feel happy for myself.
Students who have learning gaps, they have the different homework program in the afternoon to assist these students. We also have our program that is in place also that tackles literacy and numeracy to help the students to strengthen academically. So these are in place and students are benefiting from it. We had students, when they came, they weren't able to cover all their tuition, so we offered them part payment. There are students who did not have uniform. We have a uniform program that was sponsored by a club here in the community, and so students were able to receive uniform from that. We have also the Ministry of Education partnering with us for the National Breakfast Program in high schools, in NSLIP schools, and so the students, they come to school and they're able to get a meal, start their morning off, nutritionally, making sure that they're sound for class. There are students who have been placed on the welfare program, so they may not be on the PATH program just yet because of the movement and documentation, but they're on the welfare program that would have helped them to secure a cooked meal for the day. And of course, here at KT, because of the wholesomeness that we offer in our curriculum, we have form time that is scheduled every Wednesday for practically an hour. So the students are able to learn life skills and also be able to interact more with their form teacher, the classmates and so on, and that would have helped them to stabilize somewhat into the environment. Teachers know these students, we know who they are, and from time to time we check in with them to make sure that all is well. Each one can reach one, and we are a brother's keeper. And so it is fulfilling to know that we have students who are in need, who they want to continue their learning, and as a school we can make necessary adjustments to help them to be reintegrated and to continue along the path of learning.
Every day, we share personal information online, at work, and on our phones. But once it's shared, it can't always be taken back. Protect your data by avoiding oversharing, using strong passwords, and never clicking suspicious links. Be careful what you post. Don't share your live location, and keep your devices updated and secure.
Remember, your data is valuable. Protecting it isn't optional, it's necessary.
The leading non-communicable diseases in Jamaica, heart disease, diabetes, and respiratory illnesses can be managed, but only if patients take their medication as prescribed. A recent study on patients in Kingston and St. Andrew found that nearly 70% of those with hypertension and diabetes are not following their treatment plans. Health researcher Dr. D. Malcolm Brewster says the issue is not lack of access or information, it's adherence.
We have effective medications to manage them. We have access to these medications, whether it be through the National Health Fund or whether it be through private pharmacies. There's access to medications. However, we're still not achieving good control among patients who are on these medications. And so one of the key reasons for this is medication adherence, whether patients actually take their medications as prescribed.
Skipping doses or stopping treatment can put your life at risk. So, take your medication, follow your doctor's advice, and stay in control of your health. This is where we wrap up today's program. I hope you've been informed, inspired, and uplifted. Join us again tomorrow for another engaging edition of Jamaica Magazine right here on this station. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the repeat and more stories at jis.gov.jm. I'm Audrey Williams. Thanks for watching, and as always, walk good.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.